So let's talk about the pieces now. Typical jean jackets, I almost hate to tell you, but they have 14 pieces. Now, you know, just think of like a jigsaw puzzle. 2 pieces isn't really that much fun, but thousands of pieces are a lot more fun. This is what the jean jackets are like. But the good news about these pieces is we can really use multiple different fabrics. We can coordinate them however they want, but a typical jean jacket is going to have 3 pieces in the middle. It's got your front, your middle, your side, and then a front yoke. It's going to have the front facing that comes up, and a lot of times it's fun to do that in a contrasting. The bottom band, it's got 2 pieces in the back, it's got a back yoke, and then it's got your collar, which is an upper and under collar that just kind of helps it curve a little bit. And then it's got 3 pieces for your sleeve. So it's got your upper sleeve, your under sleeve, and then the cuff. Now keep in mind, we can take away whatever parts and pieces we want. Jean jackets as vests are fabulous. We just take away those 3 pieces and we don't worry about it. And then we've got down to 11 pieces. So feel free to leave off the parts that make us nervous. Later on down the road, we'll show you some alternatives to the jean jacket. So it doesn't have to always look the same when we make it. But decide on our fabrics, and then what we want to do is get that jean jacket fitting exactly like we want to. And I'm going to kind of point out some things that are going to work well for you. But the best way to do it is to really make up a sample. I'm going to bring Jeannie on. Jeannie, thanks so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
All right, so with the jean jacket, we really want it to, we're going to look at all the fitting issues. And as I fit, I'm going to actually change her right here on the table. This is her pattern. So she picked her size. How did you pick your size?
I had a jean jacket that I previously owned that I liked, and I measured the circumference of it, and that's how I picked this.
Perfect. So you just, it's actually smaller than your bust. It doesn't close.
Correct.
But even more importantly than what we think is right or what we think it should be is what we want it to be. So again, there's times where I call a jean jacket almost like an accessory.
Yep.
Because it doesn't close and it's not a jacket per se. It's definitely not worn for warmth most of the time. It's worn for style and it's just a great look. So she purposely picked it too closed.
Yes.
Too small.
Yep.
So we don't want to do anything with that. She picked the circumference that she liked. And the facing when you sew it on doesn't change that, so we're going to just leave that circumference all alone. Yep. So we're going to go through L, C, and D. And if you're a Fit to Stitch fan, you know what we're going to say. If you're not, listen up and we'll explain it as we go. So L is the length from our base of our neck to bust. In this case, because there's no direct darting, there's no exact point of length, so we don't have to worry about length. Now, overall length is a style option. And as long as, remember, this has a band at the bottom, as long as it's long enough, we don't have to worry about that even. Here's the thing I want you to notice. On her, if you notice it's going up at the front and it's coming down at the side seam. We've got some lines that we want to get rid of. The negative of it coming up at the front, if you notice, it's kind of coming off her chest rather than silhouetting her body, and we really want more of a silhouette than it just flaring out. So we're going to show you how to fix that. It's not L, because if I were to make this whole piece shorter or this whole piece longer, you see, it still does the same thing. So we know it's not a circumference issue, and we know it's not a length issue. So what that leaves us is depth. And I'm going to tell you that for most of you, our darting issues are depth. Our wrinkles are depth. I kind of said that all in once. Darting equals depth, depth equals darting. So if I see things that are right here but wrong here, I know a dart is going to be needed to pull them back in. So let me explain to you kind of what's going on in this particular jacket. You okay? Yep. Appreciate the muslin. The muslin is just a trial. It doesn't matter what fabric it is. It doesn't matter if it's an old junk thing out of your closet. You're basically just pulling it together. You want it to be stable. This is a nice woven, and you want it to be as similar to the final product as possible, just so that you can make sure those angles are correct. All right, this is imaginary. If we measure from the base of her neck and measure over her bust to her waist, we're going to call that, just for fun, we're going to call it A. Then if I measure from the shoulder and go down to her waist, we're going to call that B. So Jeannie, help me out. You're a whiz at math. Which is longer, A or B?
A is the front longer.
That's right. A is always longer. Why is it longer? Because I have a chest in the middle. And then, of course, my shoulder's angled. So both of those things make A longer than B. So my job is to make sure the cloth is equal, even though cloth can't automatically change itself, but that's my job. So that is why it's pulling up here at the front, is because she's actually longer here than what the pattern is allowing in this garment. But because the body's always right and the pattern's always wrong, we're not going to fix you, we're going to fix the pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dart right here at the side. Now automatically you see what that does is it pulls it, I'm just going to kind of show that again, it changes the angles. It pulls this back down so that now it's silhouettes, which is what we want because she'll look thinner. And it also gets rid of all this wrinkling at the side. Now what I'm going to do is once I pin this, I'm going to show you directly how to do it in your tissue. The reason this is a very common alteration is because this is where the bust dart belongs. We are not going to have this in our final product because we have these beautiful seams and we don't need to. We can end it right at the end of the seam. And any time in a garment that we can end the change right at the end of a seam, that means we don't have to sew it. The only darts we have to actually sew in garments are the darts like the bust dart and the waist dart, those darts that end internally. But this one, I'm going to come and I'm going to measure down from the armhole. Just use either point of reference. I could measure down from the armhole or up from the side seam. I'm going to measure, and if I go 2 inches down, I'm taking in a whole entire inch. So the whole reason I laid these pieces out is then go to the next piece and measure how far down. So that is going down 6 inches, 5 inches, I'm sorry, and I took up a ½ inch. And then if you notice, this front piece is not changed at all. So the pieces I'm not changing, I'm just going to take away. This one, I go down my 4, I take in and pull up a whole inch, but it goes to a ½ inch right there. So that alteration just tapers right into that next piece, boom. Then this piece, I take the ½ inch there, and that tapers to nothing. So all I do is lay out the pieces, and as I drape them and make these changes on her, I'm going to take them right back to my tissue, the same exact place. After I've made the first muslin, I could always make, we call it a clean muslin. That just means, and I would recommend if your fabric is really expensive, if it's maybe a leather and you haven't worked with before, I would do it again. Because I think in my experience, we make mistakes. We just make, oh, I could have sworn I did that, but we forgot and we didn't. All right, so that, you notice, I really love how that does to your body. But that's a big difference.
I don't feel like I have a tent on now.
That's right. And no tents. This is a jean jacket. No tent jean jackets. Because this inch is here at the side, I actually have to carry it along. So I'm actually going to take my pieces and kind of put them like this because they're going to continue. So this is the side and this is the side. I would have to make that there at the side, but I'm going to turn her because what we want to see is where the cloth naturally tells me to stop. Even if I try to stop right here, you can see all this extra in her back there. It's not going to let me stop there. So I'm going to continue until the cloth is just pretty and smooth. I don't know how deep it is, but I'm going to let the cloth kind of tell me. It's called listening to the cloth. That almost sounds a little crazy, but I'm going to listen to the cloth so that I can do what it's telling me to do, and then I'm just going to take it back to the pattern. That's what we call draping. And also, if you notice, it's hanging free to where it's not only shapelier, but it's suiting the angles of her body so much better. Now, this is directly in the back of you, and I can hear you all. You're saying, I can't do that on myself, but you can, because you can't literally do it on yourself, but you can look in the back. You can see exactly what I saw, which was way too much fabric. Take it off, guesstimate at how much it is. Start with maybe a ½ inch, taper to nothing, and then put it back on. So it's going to take you a little more time to take it off, put it on, but you can absolutely do it by yourself. I think it's the knowledge that this is a dart and that a dart can be wider and change amounts at the seams that it goes to. So it's the inch here. We're going to measure what it is at this seam, and that seam is right there. That seam is 1 inch. So this amount actually carries all the way through. So when I take that inch up, that piece from our draping comes all the way through across. It's an inch right there at that point, and at the back, it's only a ½ inch. So this is all how our bodies angle, but it is absolutely impossible to measure these changes. You can't, a tape measure can't possibly measure the hollows and the changes. So this is why drape is so important. On a jean jacket, it's not that it will make it better or worse, it'll just kind of make it, it's what Heather was talking about. It just kind of polishes it. It really makes it all that much better when you don't have clumps of fabric all over. So I did the body first. It doesn't matter the order, it's all depth, but pay attention to that shoulder seam. And if you notice, that shoulder seam is a little gappy in both places. Shoulder seams are probably the most often changed area of the body, and that's simply because just think of those many pattern makers out there and the many bodies out there, and how in the world would one pattern or even a garment that's made up fit all the angles of shoulders out there? It's just not logical. So I need you to understand this. I need you to come along and take out that shoulder seam. So let me tell you the goal of the shoulder seam. It doesn't matter where it is, front or back, because we see drop shoulders, no shoulder seams, we see all those variables. What we want is that when we touch the seam, we want it to have control over the front and control over the back. If the seam is too far back, it won't control the front. If the seam is too far front, it won't control the back. So all I'm going to do is pinch this up, and I am going to taper it to the neck edge because there was nothing wrong with the neck edge. It is kind of the leader, but I can take this up and you can see what a nice job that does now, and it's so much better. I love it, I love it, I love it. It's got a nice clean armhole. That's what she wants. Does it, it doesn't feel, but
it feels so much better.
You can feel a little bit. I want to do the sleeve. Hang on one second. Let's interpret these changes back onto our muslin where we were. We're at the yoke. So we're at the front yoke and the back yoke. And because both were changed the same amount, I'm going to just look, and it's only a 1/2 inch. So I take a 1/2 inch down here, and I could just actually taper it to nothing like that. I can fold that down here, and I fold it here as well. All right, so when we do that, the only thing we've got to fix next is our sleeve, because we've made the armhole smaller. But we're not going to fix the sleeve. We're actually just going to take the armhole. Here's the front. I'm going to do this how it is. Because I have dropped this down just a little bit, I'm just going to measure that amount and take the same armhole. I'm going to lower it down a 1/2 inch, and that's it. I'm actually going to restore the armhole exactly like it was before I made that change, and I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I folded that down a 1/2 inch there. So see, the whole armhole is here. I'm just going to take it down a 1/2 inch here as well, and I won't change that armhole a bit. Let's do a sleeve. A sleeve is a 2-piece sleeve. When I fold it in half, I've got, that's the front and that's the back. The lower seam is the front, the higher seam is the back. I'm going to put this on, just going to pin it in place. And what you'll notice a lot of the time, and just relax your arm, is you see that little twist that happens right there. And when that happens, what that means is the sleeve is straighter and the arm is more bent. So the whole reason you have a 2-piece sleeve is, let me show you, when I put these 2 pieces together, is you can see there's a bend in that arm. If I took the back pieces together, there, right there, that missing section is my dart. And what that does is it pulls the arm forward. If I cuff this up, it's still there, so we know it's not a length issue. If I take circumference away, it's still there. It's not a circumference issue. It's a depth issue. If I just make a little dart, and usually this is only like a 1/2 inch in the front, bam, that takes it away. So she relaxes her arm. You see that now the sleeve and Jeannie's arm bend the same amount. That's the goal. So I can measure where that is. Remember that these are my 2 fronts, and for me sometimes it helps to just put it together. I'm going to make a little dart there. When I make that dart, notice on the back it tapers to nothing. Here I make the same amount so that my seams will match, and again, tapers to nothing. And this is just fun. And if you're going to make a jean jacket, we might as well get it to fit just beautifully. All right, so I'm going to sew it for you now.
Oh boy.
You're ready to go. I'm going to steal it, and I guess I could leave it on you. But we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew a few things. Thank you, Jeannie. Appreciate you being here.